coping and all of the other coping mechanisms that previous generations.
So definitely go watch the rest of that video because it's rather interesting. But I think there's a secondary story behind the idea of millennials picking up grandma and grandpa hobbies and doing these sort of old fashioned things beyond just as a coping mechanism because therapy is expensive, travel is expensive, all this type of thing. I think it's also, um, I think that there's also an aspect of it that is a bit survivalistic. The world is complicated now in a way that it wasn't before. Here was the nice thing about the Cold War is it was binary. Um, it was well suited for the age it was in. It was a binary thing. There was the good and the bad, and then when that fell apart, we had a decade of Pax Americana, and then we had what happened after 2001, and things have been ever so complicated since then. Economically, politically, geopolitically, things have been complicated. And so I think the sort of return to simple things, simple coping mechanisms, things that don't cost a lot of money, things that enhance and fulfill your life, this sort of inward sort of thing is because the things happening out there are too complicated for any one person to solve. Um, and you saw this with the boomers after the civil rights and Vietnam era protests kind of fell apart. Adam Curtis talks about in his documentary part of the reason why we had in the 80s all these hippies went and became yuppies and made a ton of money and started working out and exercising, and Jane Fonda was doing exercise videos because they they tried to change the world, they failed, and they turned inward. For millennials, we were affected by forces far greater than ourselves. At a younger age, we couldn't stop terrorism, we couldn't stop 9/11. The 2008 crisis was handled by people who we had never even heard of before, didn't even know that sort of thing could happen before it happened. And so I think that same impetus to out there is a mess. Let's turn within. What can we do here in our living spaces, our apartments, our houses, parents' houses, family houses, all this type of thing today to make life a little bit easier, a little bit more fulfilling, all this type of thing. And I appreciate that. However, I think the downside of that is that society loses out on that collective action of saying, hey, this isn't right and I want to change it. And it should be changed. And I think there's a lot of I think there's a lot of difficulty with that because to some degree, that was kind of one of the tragedies of the Occupy protests, is that a lot of hubbub was made worldwide. Nothing came of it. Nothing happened. No policy was changed. No government was changed. Nothing happened. And so every time you kind of have this confrontation with the system seems to win. So isn't it easier to make a sourdough starter? I think, unfortunately, what people have forgotten is we are society. We can change society. We have to break the back of corporate statism to do it. But the only way we can do it is when we work as a collective. We have a tremendous superpower to make huge change in society. There's only one hitch. The power only works when we do it all together, at once, with a common vision moving forward. And for better or for worse, we don't have that right now. And we don't have that leader, that person who to call people to action to say, hey, we can do things differently, we can change things, we can halt these forces beyond our control. And that's why I think, someone like President Biden, his impetus to want to be FDR is a good one. We're facing many of the same challenges as we were when FDR was in office in 33 and onward. But it is very vital, I think, to remember it's not just one person. We also have to come together and say, no, we're not living like this anymore. No, we're not going to do this anymore. And unfortunately, for better or for worse, we're just not there yet.